Again.
Calling the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Board members, we do have one add-on to the agenda. That would be under new business. Number 5. Justice Court request regarding court security. Justice Morgan will be joining us a little bit later so he can talk to you. Request was, it's my understanding that the court committee met as well. So we need to add that. Okay. Before we get started with the presentation, I'm just going to give a little bit of history of how we got here. Almost 5 years ago, our town, Cindy Brand, advised the town board of the need to conduct a townwide revaluation of all properties in the town of Canton, due to the last one being done in 2008. There were and continue to be significant inequities of the tax roll, and it's about fundamental fairness. The town board at the time decided to wait due to the COVID pandemic. We have one full-time assessor position for the entire township with no additional staff. Assessors by law are appointed to 6-year terms. In preparation of getting all property data updated, the town budgeted for a part-time position to support this critical task. Assessor Brand, you are to be commended for the work for working tirelessly, updating all property records while at the same time doing your day-to-day job of town assessment. The town of Canton has close to 4,000 properties. We sincerely appreciate the St. Lawrence County Real Property Office for the support they have provided, along with Christy McKay, in assuring the data is collected and updated in the systems. They literally went out to all the properties, took photos, including review of property inventory. The St. Lawrence County Property Office mandate for town revaluations is to plan at least a year in advance. The town board started planning and budgeting for this project. Due to the enormous undertaking of the project, the board decided to contract with Gar Associates. The village board supported the revaluation and agreed to pay 1/3 of the cost. We were able to negotiate a cost of $180,000 for this project for a 2-year period. The town is at 65% funded. The process has started, and now we are at the public education piece of the project. This starts with tonight's presentation. A page on the town and village website is being created, and there will be a printed brochure. Gar Associates have years of experience, additional staff, and each of their projects have been certified by the New York State Office of Real Property Tax Services, which is a division of the New York State Taxation and Finance. Welcome David Barnett. He is here to present our analysis, and we'll take questions from the board, and then we will open it up to the public to ask questions. David, welcome to the town of Canton. And there are extra copies of the presentation available on over there. And, okay.
Thank you very much. My name is Dave Barnett. I'm one of the partners at Gar Associates. And this presentation will really cover the reassessment project as a whole. Some of the myths and misconceptions that are involved with the reassessment project. Obviously, there is tax liability as it relates to the value. Your assessed value is the vehicle of what you're going to pay in taxes. But ultimately, what this will talk about is a little bit of timeline, a little bit of the process, what to expect, what's going to happen, what won't happen, and just really sort of a comprehensive overall view of what a project entails and as it relates to the town of Canton. As the supervisor mentioned, Gar Associates has been in business for 64 years. For over 50 of those years, we've been doing reassessment projects of this nature across New York State. There's really not an area of New York State that we've not covered. But ultimately, all of our projects have been certified at 100%. Just a couple things off the bat is that there's nothing mandating in New York real property tax law to carry your values at 100%. What is on the books and what is in real property tax law is a uniform percent of value. Supervisor mentioned an agency, it's a state agency that ultimately oversees assessment rolls. They do a bunch of different things, but they oversee assessment rolls, they oversee projects, and they determine what's called an equalization rate. And that equalization rate is determined by taking a random sample of sales within a given community, within a given market area, within a given municipality. And what they do is they compare what it sold for and what the current assessment is. Now, I mentioned a random sample of sales because it could be a vacant piece of land, it could be a commercial property, it could be a residential property that's on one side of the town, that's in the village. And ultimately, I say it's random because not every property appreciates or depreciates at the same level. So the intention, first and foremost, of the reassessment project is to create fairness. I don't think anybody's happy about paying property taxes. I live in New York State. I pay property taxes in New York State. But ultimately, the goal of this is to make sure that if nothing else, you're paying your fair share. Now, the function of the assessment office and the function of this project, or the goal of this project, is to make sure that your value, which is the vehicle and what you pay, is accurate. So I mentioned this equalization rate that's developed by taking a random sample. What the project will do is look at everybody specifically. It's parcel specific. So whether you're in a 1,200 square foot ranch in one side of the town, or you're in the village and you have a certain property, we'll be looking at your property. And the first step in any project is data verification. Ultimately, any project, anywhere you go, is typically what we do is we break it down into 3 phases. You have a data verification, a collection process, you have the valuation process, and then the third is an opportunity to challenge your assessment. As you do every year, you have the ability to go to grievance step. There will be an additional, which I'll talk about in a minute, but there's an additional step where you can come and go through what we call an informal review. I will say, one of our main goals and something that we've been able to accomplish is an element of transparency. So as a property owner, you will see assessments, you will see sales, you'll have the opportunity to get information, you'll have a timeline. We have certain statutory dates that we follow. We don't make those up. GAR didn't make that up. Your assessor doesn't make that up. That's dictated by real property tax law. But ultimately, there's these 3 phases. So when we get to March 1st, in and around March 1st of 2026, we essentially are working backwards from that date. And here we are now. So the first phase is the data collection process. It's a collaborative effort in the sense that town staff have gone on site in most cases, verifying information, collecting information. After that process is complete, what we're going to do is disseminate a notice, a postcard out to property owners. There'll be a populated survey, essentially through the data collection phase, which will really run into the summer, where the intention is before we look at a sale, before we look at a value, before we look at what we call neighborhood delineation, we want to make sure that we get the information correct. So you as a property owner will see what has been collected, what we have on file. If there are any discrepancies, there'll be a process to follow. Okay, you review the information. There's something that we have incorrect. You'll have an opportunity to make that correction for our review. We will review them. Once we get through the data verification phase, and I should mention, if you're a commercial property owner, there'll be an income and expense survey letter that's mailed out to you that we ask you to fill out, so that we have, from a commercial standpoint, we do an income approach to valuation, as well as a sales approach. but we're asking you so that while will use the market, we do want to get information on your property as it relates to the income that you produce for your commercial property. But the intention, again, through the data verification phase, is to make sure that we get the inventory correct. And we will make corrections where warranted, where necessary. As soon as we get through the data portion, the improved portion, we're also going to look at and do land verification. That's basically getting acreage correct. That's on file because again, that's the basis of your evaluation. Land breakdowns like primary, if you're an agricultural property owner, making sure that it aligns with the potential ag exemption that you have, or what you have there, what you're farming, what you're not farming. That's part of the verification process is the land portion. So we want to make sure that, again, we're looking at the right acreage sizes, we're looking at the right lot sizes, we're getting to the best of our ability, the makeup of whatever if it's a large acre tract or piece, that we're, if nothing else, getting that information correct. Once we complete the collection process, and that'll really run into the summer, we then segue into the valuation process, or the valuation phase of the project. Couple key components of the valuation phase. Something called neighborhood delineation. Sounds super technical. It's not really. What we're essentially doing is establishing market areas within the town, some of which may be done for us already, like the village. We may, break up the village into another neighborhood. I don't have that answer now, but regardless of that, we'll look so that ultimately, from a locational standpoint, when we start getting to valuation, the basis for your valuation is going to be comparable sales. And by comparable, not all properties are identical. So some are bigger, some are smaller. But these are sales that typically about a 2-year window we're looking at. Obviously, post-COVID, there's been an appreciation in the market, but we're looking at essentially a 2-year window. We may go a little bit farther back. We may go a little bit shorter, but that's a general rule of thumb. But when we start looking at properties that have not sold, and we're looking at properties that have sold, we want to make sure that we're, from a locational standpoint, comparing apples to apples. So that's part of the neighborhood delineation. While we're doing neighborhood delineation, the other thing that we're doing really simultaneously at the same time is sales verification. Now, this isn't, we're talking about arm's length, valid sales. What does that mean? That's not Cousin Louie selling it to Uncle Johnny for a fraction of the price. That's a property that had ample market exposure time, informed buyer and seller. An arm's length transaction is really a valid sale. And we get a series of these sales. We will develop a value based on those sales in given neighborhoods. And what I will say is it's collaborative in the sense that we involve the assessor. The assessor knows the town, has visited the properties. It's not just us determining, we work hand in hand. We will determine these values. We will also quality control the values for consistency purposes. What we will also do from a timing standpoint that really sort of runs through the end of the year is sort of our valuation phase. So you can think from the fall until January, January-ish, about there. And then ultimately will involve the state of New York and the Office of Real Property Tax Services. We'll do some analysis before we mail a notice. We are required by law to mail a notice. In this case, what's called a disclosure notice, an impact notice. That impact notice will have a new preliminary value. So in and around March 1st, you will receive a disclosure notice that'll have a preliminary value and a hypothetical tax rate. And the reason that it's hypothetical is because none of the budgets have been established. And the assessment roll at that point is not finalized. It's important to remember that from March 1st, you get a notice. The tentative roll is filed as it is every year. Project's no different, May 1st. So when we mail a notice, we're going to be having a series of informal reviews with property owners. There are going to be reductions where warranted. So ultimately, the total pie, the total taxable value at that point is not set in stone. The disclosure notice is a statutory legal document. We have to put a hypothetical tax illustration on it. We have to let you know as a property owner, if it was a snapshot on time, this was the value, the budget stayed the same, and your new value was established, this is what you may or may not pay in tax. What we're focused on, and we recognize that the tax liability, everybody wants to know what they have to dig into their pocket. As a property owner, and our role in this, we want you to focus on the value. Is that value appropriate? Do you think that you could, if you put a for sale sign on, after you look at information of sales within your neighborhood, sales within the town, similar assessments, similar properties, does the value make sense? Is it in line? This is not a science. It's never going to be perfect. We're going to have this informal review period where you'll be able to, if you get the notice, you may agree with the value. There's no further action required. If you do not agree with the value, there'll be a process to follow, the informal review process. You'll be able to look at information in an informal setting. You'll be able to challenge your assessment. Reductions where warranted will be granted. As it is every year, the tentative roll is filed May 1st. So a couple scenarios, you get your notice, the value's in line, you feel that it's reasonable, it seems right based on what you've looked at, what you've seen. If you don't agree with the value, you feel that it's excessive, you'll have an opportunity to challenge your assessment through an informal review process. If you do not get the reduction through the informal review process, after the tentative roll is filed May 1st, you will receive notification of what that value is. Was it reduced? There might be no change. And again, the second potential step, as you do every year, you can go to grievance. Now, grievance day is with the Board of Assessment Review. It's not a representative of GAR. It's not a representative of the assessment office. The one thing that you do have in common with them is that they're residents of the town. So they'll render, and I refer them as an independent panel. That's a potential second step. So, we encourage everybody to come to an informal because a lot of times we can, make the reductions where warranted and there's no further action. If you do not get that reduction and you choose to go to the Board of Assessment Review, you can do that. And then there's an additional step. So a couple key dates, as I mentioned, March 1st, May 1st. Ultimately, the assessment roll will be finalized by law July 1st of 26. The first time that you will see the new assessment reflected in your tax bill will be in September, I think, with the school. That'll be that first bill that you'll see that your assessment, where you'll see an impact in your tax liability in your tax. Couple myths and misconceptions. This is in a way for the town to raise revenue. There's no additional revenue. It's revenue neutral. Ultimately, the best analogy is that it's a pie. Everybody's slice as it stands now. There's some people that are underassessed and there's some people that are overassessed. There's some people that are the market. So at the end of this, there's going to be some people that see a reduction. Their assessment will go up, but they'll see a reduction in their tax liability. That pie is going to get bigger. Right now, you're assessed at 65. 65 is not an accurate number. It's an average of an average. So ultimately, otherwise we could just do the math. We do the division and your assessment will come out and be perfect. As I mentioned at the onset, that equalization rate is based on a random sample sale. So in other words, you have some people that are at 12%, you have some people that are at 95%, you have some people that are at 14, 25, on and on. At the end of this, your market value should be at 100% and what you could sell that property for, your property. So the pie will get bigger. There's no way of knowing how that tax rate will drop. But ultimately, if the budget remains somewhat stagnant and there's not huge increases in the budget, ultimately the pie has gotten bigger. If the pie is bigger and you divide that budget into a bigger pie, that tax rate will drop. But at the end of it, typical general rule of thumb is a third, and a third. Third goes down, third stays the same, and the third goes up. Irregardless of whatever your assessment is, and it'll be here before you know it, but we have a lot of work to do before we get there. You will have an opportunity to review your information. We'll have a dedicated online website that'll be dedicated to the project. We'll have all of the information on everybody's property. Again, an element of transparency. If you're not an internet user, that same information will be available in paper form. And you'll have the opportunity to, again, challenge your assessment. When you get that notice March 1st, and at some point I'll be back and I'll be stressing to the board and to the public and you as property owners, that number's preliminary. When you get that disclosure notice, that value is preliminary, and you'll have an opportunity to challenge it, and it can be reduced. Nothing is set in stone in March 1st, 2026. And it's not even set in stone after May 1st, 2026, because you have another opportunity with grievance day and additional litigation after. There's a potential 3 steps. So it's important to sort of outline those dates, the process. And we ask you as property owners to be engaged. When you get a populated survey, please, review the information. If there is something incorrect, let us know so that we, if nothing else, we can get the correct inventory. Yes, I think I probably went out of order because I wasn't signaling. No, I think I covered most of this. Yeah, it's good. Just, I don't know if the commercial property owners, but commercial property owners, as I mentioned, there's an income component to this, an income approach to valuation. That's something that, if you have rentals, if it's owner occupied, things of that nature, and that could be covered with the income and expense survey and letter that gets mailed out. But there is that additional approach to value. We still look at sales the same way. Residential is primarily sales. There is some cost approach that's in there. But a lot of times it's the least reliable just because properties and certain outbuildings and structures depreciate over time. So we try to rely on a market approach, which is sales and I just mentioned the informal review process. You'll have a dedicated site. Again, if you're not an internet user, we'll have a toll-free hotline that you can call to get information. We'll make ourselves available. But again, you'll have an informal review process. When you get your disclosure notice, again, it's a little bit down the road, but when you get the disclosure notice, there'll be an insert letter that clearly defines step by step. How do I challenge? Where do I see my information? Where do I go? What are the timelines? What are the dates? What do I need to be concerned about? And again, that'll be in and around March 1st. Yeah, I just mentioned the grievance dates for Tuesday in May. But again, we're going to have this informal review process prior to that. So the first time that you're going to see your value is with the March 1st. If you go through an informal review process, May 1st is a tentative goal, and then as you do every year, you have the fourth Tuesday in May to go to the second step of a potential 3-step process. Thank you. I appreciate it. welcome the opportunity to come and present and then see any questions.
Okay, so I'm gonna open it up to board members. Any questions? Jim?
First of all, could you explain a little bit the difference between what you did in Potsdam and what you did in Canton? Because I'm hearing a lot about from people I know from Potsdam, neighbors that are Potsdam residents. I have one myself. But the process is different, isn't it?
It's different in the sense that we didn't do data collection.
You're not doing data collection.
Correct. We're verifying the data. Yeah.
And so,
That's one nuance, so that's one difference.
and that's why it's considerably cheaper than it was in Potsdam, because you're using our assessor's data collection information.
Yes,
All right.
and that's a huge undertaking and labor intensive to go door to door, which not necessarily viable, but there's other differences. I mean, every project's different. There's other budgets. It's really sort of hard to even in close proximity. It's gonna be a different dynamic.
So the data verification that you did in Potsdam, do you contact individual landowners when you do your data verification?
Our data, post-COVID, our verification is done through recent aerial imagery. And the process will be the same, is that we will disseminate what we have collected and the inventory. We'll still do the informals, but we'll do the same process, transparent, to say, this is what we have collected, this is what we have on file. And they'll have an opportunity to review that. If there's discrepancies, they have the ability to make us aware of that.
You don't send anything out to landowners from government. Everything that, all the information that the county Canton residents are going to receive will come from the Canton assessor.
While we'll facilitate the mailing of them,
But the envelopes that everybody gets is going to be coming from town of Canton assessor's office.
there
So
may be GAR associates on there because we'll be potentially have to field, any calls or whatever, but the return address will be town of Canton.
and the letter, all the letterheads. So the only time is there will be, like in the prelim, when the first one comes out, the impact notice, the very first one that comes out
Yes.
March 1st.
That's,
That
Yeah.
will come from Cindy's office, town of Canton. In that packet will be a piece of paper with GAR's some information from there. And that informal review process that we talked about, where you can either go online or make the 800 phone number.
yeah, let me just clarify. The first time there'll be anything disseminated to property owners will be in regards to the inventory. And that'll be in the summer of this year of 25. So in other words, with the phase at the conclusion of the data collection verification phase, there will be a mailing that goes out to property owners stating, this is what we have collected, this is what we have on file. Then, once we clean that up, you fast forward to March 1st of 26. That notice, that impact notice, that disclosure notice is a statutory document. So we can't customize that, but we will include an insert letter that's a step-by-step process.
All right, so everybody's gonna get an impact notice March 1st. And all that impact notice is gonna show, this is what your current assessment is, this is your new assessment. Here's the increase and the information at the bottom about what you're gonna pay in tax.
There'll be a hypothetical tax illustration that says you're either going up or you're going down in that figure. That calculation is based on prior levies and the new preliminary assessment.
So And of course, there's no explanation with regard to that. As to, like somebody's assessment, there'll be some assessments, I think, the town that could go up 3, 4, 5. Awesome,
And you could,
but anyway,
I mean,
But
just
there'll
vacant
be-
land that.
but you're gonna open the envelope, and that's what you're gonna see as an impact notice. It's not going to, there'll be no explanation.
There'll be an insert letter with that impact notice as to what to do.
What to do, but no explanation. All right, so, but in your informal review, if you have a question with regard to this new assessment, you will ask the landowner what they think their assessment should be.
If they challenge it, yes, we're gonna say, what do you think it's worth? And that number, what any property owner thinks it's worth is just a basis for our review. In other words, we're gonna review it no matter what. They could say it's worth $1, but if you go through an informal review, it forces us to review, analyze, et cetera, and make sure that our value is substantiated and supported.
And so then, after you ask the landowner for what they think it should be, you do ask them,
Why, you also have the opportunity, I mean, we're speaking strictly in land order, but even if it's an improved, let's just say it's an improved property. There's, again, we're doing everything from the exterior. We didn't do interior inspections. So if there's things that would be a detriment to the value of their home, we ask property owners to present that. Or if they have a recent appraisal, that's a credible appraisal. So it's not, it is asking why, but you have the opportunity to provide some documentation to support the why.
and so the resident can do that.
Yes,
And so then they've got their impact notice, they've done the informal review, they've sent you that information as to why they think it should be reduced and what it should be reduced to. And then May 1st, they're going to get another envelope in the mail, and it will have what preliminary was in the tenant.
correct.
And if those two are the same, it means that Gar said no to the explanation of why.
Let
But
me,
again, no one explains why.
let me just clarify that. It's not Gar saying that. Legally, the assessor signs the assessment. So one key component of this is that while you submit an informal, we review it and write a recommendation. We don't make the final, your assessor makes the final determination because ultimately she signs the assessment. That is accurate that there's not, the statutory documents do not provide for us to provide an explanation. But they will get notification. And if they choose, and it wasn't reduced, there was no change, they can go to the Board of Assessment. As a second step.
On that, though, they won't know until May 1st whether it was reduced or not.
In and around me.
You're not gonna get a separate letter saying, no, we're sorry, but we feel that it was our value was warranted.
They're gonna, if you come to an informal, you will receive a notice in and around May 1st as a decision from that informal. So you get the disclosure notice and then the follow-up notice if you go to the informal. The follow-up notice goes in and around May 1st. And again, if you get a reduction, there's no further action required that you feel is appropriate for the market value. In the event that you still think it should be reduced further, then you could, so invariably, someone might get a reduction, it's not enough, or what they feel is reflected, and it's not enough. They can go to as they could do every year. They can go to the Board of Assessment review. That's a potential second step, and then there's litigation based on the property. It's either a small claims proceeding. If you're a commercial property owner, it's an Article 7. just two different filings, but it's a judicial process.
Do you have a number of the percentage of informal reviews that were successful? That were changed? Do you have a?
No, I don't. What I will say that a typical number is 10 to 15% of the total proposal. Someone comes to an informal, but it varies as to, as an example, some people come in and don't submit any information. They just tell me their taxes are too high. So it's hard to kind of gauge. I'm not trying to be evasive, but it's hard to gauge, say, oh, out of that 10%, 5%. What I will say is that there are reductions. There's no doubt. It just varies as to the success rate.
What percentage of total request informal review?
About 10 to 15.
That request,
That come to that file an informal review.
okay, and of those 10 or 15, what percentage of them get changed?
I don't know that it really, yeah, it varies. It's hard to say because again, some people provide credible information. Some people provide no information.
Yeah,
So
I think that would be standard.
yeah,
Municipality.
I don't have that number. It's not something that, it just really varies. The averages vary.
So I have a question. Can you talk more about the market as a whole? And how it has changed from pre-COVID, COVID, and now?
Yeah.
Because I think the market is important to learn more.
Yeah. What I would say, generally speaking, and this is true statewide, in all of the communities, is that there's been post-COVID this phenomenon of pretty pronounced appreciation, and it's tied to supply typically. That there's just not a lot of homes on the market, and everybody that's looking at a home on a market doesn't have a lot to choose from, and that's really pushing the values up. We saw initially with some low interest rates, those rates have come up, but I think generally speaking, it's supply. The complication for all communities, and this isn't isolated to the town of Canton, is what happens is when there's an appreciating market and those assessments are not changed to be reflected. In other words, you're not doing any sort of project or updating or maintenance or trending or anything like that, that equate is getting pushed down and down. So the market's going up, assessments are staying the same. So if you look over the last few years, there could be a 10% drop or more on a yearly basis. In other words, in 24, you're going to, or 25, you're going to 20, 25 is 65%, and 24 be 55%, or 75%. You're seeing large decreases because of the increase in the market. And that's challenging for any community. The other thing is the inherent benefits at carrying their values at 100%. To the town, there's bond rating that's tied to assessed value. The other thing too is any exemptions, whether it's a star exemption, vets exemption, if you're any vets out there, appreciate your service. Those all go to the full allowed amount. Right now, you're only getting a percent. So as I mentioned, that pie, the pie getting bigger, if the budget remains relatively stagnant, that tax rate will drop. But also with that pie getting bigger, is any of the exemption amounts, those are going to the full allowable amount. And those are significant. So there is a little bit of relief. Senior star exemption, there's a number of those exemptions, but they all go up. And so just in terms of overall, but yeah, the market's a problem. Now, it's hard to have a crystal ball. We thought that it was a bubble. There was some conventional wisdom that this wasn't sustainable. This has been a long period of time where it's going up and up and up. And there's never a good time to do reassessment project, like you can't time it with a, we've done it in down markets, we've done them in sort of stagnant markets, there may be a cooling off period. But if nothing else, we want to just get the values appropriate. Another statutory date, the same way that it's July 1st. There's another statutory date in terms of a valuation date that the state of New York dictates through real property tax. And so that's July 1st in this case, in this scenario, where you're mailing a notice in March 1st of 26. The valuation date is July 1st of 25. Now, what we do is the state of New York stops when they do their analysis of the assessment. They stop at July 1st of 25. We will look at sales that occur after. We will analyze them. What we're trying to do, while the law clearly dictates, but just getting a general sense of where the market's going, we are going to look at listings, fresh listings, properties that have been on the market. We are using closed arm's length transactions, but that's something that'll go into our analysis. Try to get as close to that July 1st date, but just seeing what the trends are and what's happening in the market. Because it is volatile. It's going up and, it's been going up, but we want to see if it's going to smooth out.
Thank you. Any other?
And I guess I want to talk about the pie concept for a minute. That seems to be where the most confusion is
Yeah,
in the general public.
yeah,
People think that their taxes are gonna go up the same rate as their valuation of their house goes up, and that's a mistake.
correct.
We have a flat, explain to me, I'm gonna explain it and tell you if I'm doing it.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have our budget, and our budget's gonna go up, but it's pretty basically flat. So right now, they talk about price per thousand on your house. let's say.
Yeah.
And I don't know if these are the actual numbers, but let's say right now you're paying $5 per $1,000 in taxes for the value of your house.
Yeah.
Once the valuation goes up, but our budgets remain the same, that $5 per thousand cost me about to $3 per.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's the misconception a lot of people have, is that the price per thousand of the value of their house is actually gonna go down.
That tax rate invariably will drop
That's right.
as long as that budget remains stagnant.
Fairly constant.
Yeah, and there's certain mechanisms to assure that between the two, cap and
That's right.
being fiscally responsible, not only you, the town board, the village, but school boards, all the entities that are involved relatively, and we've seen that where it remains. So that's accurate. What if it's $5? Is it gonna drop to $3? We don't know that.
But it's gonna go down.
It's gonna go down.
As valuation goes up, price per thousand of both taxes is gonna go down. And that's where kind of misconception that I don't think a lot of the public understands. They think if I have a 25% raise in my value of my house, my taxes are gonna go up 25%, and that's not necessarily true.
And, yes, that you're correct, that's not true. The other aspect of this is that while we struggle with the disclosure notice because it's a hypothetical illustration, what you're describing, that scenario, that will show your taxes. So in other words, let's just say the budget stays the same. I'm just using an arbitrary number. But it went from 50 million to now the total taxable is 70 million, right? And that $5 went to $3. That's reflected on your disclosure notice. That's your hypothetical illustration. And if all things being equal, that's what you can expect. And that's the intention. It's quite frankly a little misleading, because then people say, well, I didn't pay this in taxes last year because special districts aren't in there, or village. And then what happens if the budget does change? Well, you said it was going to be this. We're just trying, the intention of that illustration is to say if everything was the same, and that's not shot in time in the total value, but it's not going to be dollar for dollar in that percentage.
Because the money we're gonna spend is gonna be roughly the same for the town and the village, just gonna be divided.
And that is part of the issue too, is that some people are under assessed. Now, their assessments are gonna be brought to an appropriate market value. And they're gonna see, they potentially could see an increase. Even though the tax rate's going down, their slice is now getting bigger back to the fund. Appropriate, because that's what the value of their property. Right now, it's too small.
Usually that's roughly a third.
Typically, it's a third, and a third. Yeah, that's usually, that's a pretty good general rule.
So just for the record, the town Canton tax rate is $3.10 per thousand.
I actually knew that.
You did. And we're one of the lowest of 32 towns.
And not just in the town, but, you know, the town taxing entity, the county, the school, you know, you're gonna, all of those numbers, is the same sort of formula or methodology is gonna be applied to them. Whatever the share is, the pie is gonna get bigger. So ultimately, those tax rates will potentially, again, we don't have a crystal ball. It's hard to know what the budgets are gonna be, but if they stay relatively stagnant or the same, then that tax rate will go.
Okay, any other questions?
Just one more.
Yep.
So this is what you do, you know what's going on. You know, our peak rate is 65%. You have best estimate on percentage increase in value.
I don't. We're still collecting data, we're still finding, I will say that, as a loose use case, you know, please don't quote me on these numbers, but we've had municipalities that had an E rate in and around 70 that's doubled their assessment. So, which again, I'm not saying that this is gonna happen here. What it does illustrate is that the equalization rate is not an accurate number. That I think is the most demonstrative, is that the E rate is in this case, or in any case, because it's an average of an average, it's taking a random sample. But I can't sit here now and be doing a disservice to the public, to you, to everybody, to say, this is what you're gonna see in an increase. It's impossible. There's so many
No, and
moving parts.
well, and except you're talking, everybody's just gonna change it. They're just saying, you know, across a township,
Yeah, it's hard, it's really impossible to do that, because there's so many things that are involved in it, between data. Yes, there's gonna be variations, but if we knew the rate, the E rate was accurate, and we did some analysis, but we're at the infancy stages of this project. We'll know at the end. You know, we'll know at the end, but anything that I would tell you would be purely speculative and actually kind of dangerous, because then people would expect that, start looking at their tax bill. I wouldn't do that. We don't know.
Okay.
Matt. I think one of the areas, I think, in my opinion, what I've heard, what we're gonna be different, is the work that students put in, is our data collection, I think, is very, very thorough. Which is different from what I've heard in the general atmosphere about other towns in the area. Is the thoroughness, how much she's done to make it easier data collection for you guys. Am I right in that regard?
I think that, you know, it's important to remember that the Office of Real Property Tax Services monitors projects. So I could sit here and say, yeah, our data is perfect. And, right, but it's not, it's an infallible, you know, we're not in a science, right? What I will say is all of our projects are certified, inclusive of data collection. So I think we're pretty thorough. Again, we're following the same process from the standpoint that whatever we're collecting, whatever inventory that we've collected, that has been presented to the public. And that'll be the same here. Just to speak to other towns, we're not here to talk about other towns, we're just here to talk
That's why I
about.
didn't mention it.
But you made that comment. It's thorough from the standpoint that we've collected. we presented. If there were discrepancies, we made changes. So I feel confident. And we have a state agency that oversaw the project as a whole, inclusive of data.
I wasn't making a comment on your thoroughness. I was making a comment on how thorough it's already done. You guys started the process.
Without a doubt, Cindy's efforts between, you know, the assessor's efforts and her staff. I can't say it enough that it's certainly makes our jobs easier. Well, and from that standpoint, if you have, really sound inventory and the integrity of the data, then you'll have better values. There's no,
That's why I wanted
Yeah.
to share.
Okay, great. Why don't we open it up to the public? If you could stand, state your name, and you can ask Steve your questions. If you could leave it under 3 minutes so that everybody has an opportunity, that would help. So are there any questions from the public regarding this? Can you stand up? I know, but I haven't heard.
You can hear me. Yeah. I have a question about the income and expenses. Do you really expect people to their income and expense to company that days here? In June, we're gonna do that. If there's anybody in this town. If we're talking about income and expense, we're talking about our rent with the buildings is a big office space or house or whatever. How does this all put together? How does someone say, oh yeah, here's my business, here's my income and expenses, and you take it and show it around the public, whatever you want to do.
no, well, let me just, so you're under no obligation to return.
Okay.
That's first. Yeah.
So then what happens when you bill submit that?
We would extract market data. So
where?
from the market, from resources in the market. MLS, CoStar was
I'm sorry.
MLS, multiple listing service, CoStar. And I just, let me just interject for 1 second. We're not sharing it with the public. What we're doing is we're utilizing it to build expense ratios, vacancy rates.
Okay.
Yeah, and also too, as it relates to your own property, what is the unit mix? Is it retail on the first floor? I mean, again, we have to do everything from the exterior, so that's why we encourage property owners, you know, to give us what that unit mix is. What is the space? What is the commercial space? And we typically get, I don't know, 20%. I will say that once we mail a disclosure notice and the value becomes real, to most property owners, it's, you know, at that point, the rent roll comes out, the INE. This is what, and so that's why we're just trying to get ahead of it. And that's why we're doing it. But we get pretty, 20% return rate or so, 25.
And then the rest, you sort of, it's basically a guesstimate as to what that property is worth based on.
From an income approach standpoint, we,
I gotta tell you, I'm gonna. The state everybody goes and knows. I do this every day. I'm not seeing how you're gonna. Income data for the market segment. I'm gonna tell you, it's really. Yeah, you got a big job. I appreciate it. But I think that that particular is going to be something. Understand, you know, that how valid the information you're going to be. Worthy and apply. That's something that everyone here should do.
well, what I'll say is an appraiser, you know this, so you have an area of expertise where some people may not. Income approach is one approach. There's a sales approach. So I know you do, but I'm just saying for the benefit of everybody here that doesn't carry the same expertise that you have. A sales approach is going to be the other basis. So in other words, a mixed use property that potentially sold in the town or sold within the county, if it's a gas station or a car dealership or a hotel, those are going to be analyzed the same way. So the income is one component, we're not relying solely on that. Obviously, you know, through the informal review period, that's when, again, you'll have another opportunity. And that's analyzed again, same way with residential. The commercial is also, from an oversight standpoint, from the Office of Real Property Tax Services, they're monitoring what we're doing.
You mind that keep that? The property owners, you're assured they have a bit. This, you described in great detail. If they have a problem, they can proceed to that. So, in the very end, and again, I've had multiple people, I've done a lot of work. Involvement.
So I'm gonna ask you to speak up because I can't hear.
I've done a lot of work on these posts in Boston. Okay, a lot of people have called me, and turmoil with it. I know you don't want to. This is a huge issue. I mean, so what I'm saying is, at the very end, you're forcing people to spend money on someone like myself to do work, to go to grievance, to go to a grievance board. I just think that is completely wrong. Look, over there, these drones, whatever else, you have carpet on the whole outstanding village in town. To come up with numbers. Yesterday, the short work for family, $145,000 assessment went to $320,000. So you folks came up. This person complained, sent the paperwork in, denied, called on the phone. He said, sorry, we can't help you, so on and so forth. These are the kind of things I'm hearing. I would like you to address these things. Because to me, that's what's going to, you're going to end up having all these people, you're going to be a business line from here to McDonald's. I guess my question is, how are you going to address these issues?
Yeah, I just want to address it. We didn't use drones. I don't know where that came
You
from.
just mentioned.
Aerial imagery is different.
What's aerial imagery?
That's, that,
Satellite?
no, it's not. Aerial imagery is fixed wing planes.
Okay. So you're flying over some.
Are you gonna let me speak?
Yeah, sure.
Let me finish, please. We fly over, yes, that's accurate. There's oblique and ortho imagery that allows us to measure. So we can see north, south, east, and west from top down. In other words, nobody has to allow us onto the property. Pre-COVID, we were afforded that ability. Now we are not allowed to. Okay, people and the dynamics have changed. Once upon a time, we could walk around it. Post-COVID and advancements in technology, we're able to get measurements, collect properties. We're not beholden to the weather. There's efficiencies and cost savings that are passed back to that municipality. So I want to be clear, it's not drones, it's aerial imagery, because that's an important terminology. The other issue is there's no carpet bomb. So I just want to be clear. That scenario that you're talking about, and I have no idea what this property is. If that 320 was not justified, and it was not, and that property owner went through the informal review period and submitted information, I can't speak to whether someone was rude or not. What I can tell you is that our phone staff is well-trained, seasoned, does this year over year with municipalities all across New York State. It's not, yeah, I understand, and there's a lot of, it's like a game of telephone. There's a lot that's said out there that's factually not true. So again, you're creating a scenario where someone didn't get their reduction. I have no basis to explain. You're asking me to address this. We're talking about another municipality and another property. I have no idea. I can't. I'm not going to sit here and say what happened or didn't happen there. All I can do is speak to the town of Canton. They don't have to go out, and I'm not trying to take money out of your pocket, or take business away from you. We make this transparent from the standpoint that they can look at information. You, as a property owner, have the ability to look at sales, call the number, get information, look at other assessments. And if there's something before they go out and pay for an appraisal, so full well to do, utilize the resources that are available to you as a property owner with the informal review. Because I'm going to tell you this, you hear about the people that are upset. There's about 70 to 75% of the people in these communities, wherever you want to mention, that are happy with the process, that were assessed unfairly for a number of years. Okay? There's people that are here in the town of Canton that their assessment is not accurate. The last time that they've done a comprehensive reassessment project was in 2008, and they did a pseudo update in 2012. Over those years, there's inequities that are ingrained into a community, and this is not isolated to the town of Canton. So there are going to be large changes that we feel are supported through sales. If they're not supported, or as a property owner, you want to challenge it, you have the opportunity. I'm not going to sit here and guarantee that if you come to an informal, that you're going to get the reduction. If you provide credible information and we provide a recommendation and your assessor agrees, then a reduction will be warranted.
Okay, David, I'm gonna open it up to others. Anyone else have?
Yeah.
And I just don't understand from. I over, you're looking down, you see my house, you've seen that I have a little shed up in back that I'm nothing. I have another little shed next to the house that's sitting there, I'm nothing, and I've got. That. Then here that isn't attached, and how is that, how are you gonna know that they're not? How is that?
Yeah, let me just clarify. We're not doing collection. We're not doing aerial imagery. This gentleman asked me about another municipality, which I promised I wasn't going to talk about. But we went down that road. Here, your assessor has gone to every property. And part of real property tax law is they dictate how you collect property. So in other words, it's heated square foot of living. What you're describing is a deck or a shed. Those are collected, and this is the state's term, as improvement. So they're on the file. What they contribute to value is minimal, if anything at all. We're focused on your house, your living area, your land, the main components of that.
Oh, that being said, and I was concerned, but again, y'all don't really know. I don't know, I mean, but. You guys supposed to do this. You've gone. You go around and. So you could only.
Mostly over the last 2 years.
You could only go to find my house and take a picture of my, out in front of my house with your crazy movie.
Only on the street, and if I can't get down the driveway, and I don't go down the driveway, it's noted in the file that the home is not visible from the road.
Next to the road, but I mean, I just, I've seen pictures that are, like, I mean, and this is just. Little, and picture of my house, with this big huge tree, and you can't see it. And then you're, so, I just wasn't sure how. If you have, physical photograph, like, say on my house, you would have that.
If you'd like to come in, I'll
I
show
can come
it.
in.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you bring up a good point. At the end and the conclusion of the data verification collection phase, you'll be able to review your information. So in other words, that deck, that shed, that's going to be on file. You're going to see the measurements of that. You're going to see the pertinent information for those. I'm saying improvements. It may have been built before you bought the house, but those type of improvements, amenities, detached garages, that's all going to be displayed for you to review, and if there's a discrepancy, there'll be a process for you to correct it. Again, before we look at a value, before we look at anything.
Lee?
Lee Rodriguez, I just had a question about the disclosure that you send out. So when you do that, it's a best guess. As long as everything's stable, what the taxes might look like after the reassessment. Do you also in that inform them or compare that to what it was prior? So people can see the difference, because there's probably people out here that don't look that closely at their tax and don't know off the top of their head what they're currently paying. So to show the change, I
That's what
think
it
is
is.
helpful for people as well. Rather than just saying, this is what it's gonna be, saying, this is where you were, and this is where we're thinking you're going to be. So it's more informative to the people, so they can better understand the impact of it.
That's what an impact is. So it'll show the tax liability for your prior year, the new preliminary, and then the difference between the tips.
Okay, any other questions?
Would you just explain a little bit about in the real property law, it drains the budget process? Town doesn't see the increased pie as an opportunity for the increase in their margin. That is, there must be some way that you can't have the same tax rate once the pie gets bigger. And what is in law?
There's a good question. There's certain mechanisms to restrict the increase in the levy. So in other words, the 2%. However, there are also mechanisms that allow you to go above 2%.
Right.
That's, that's about it, the extent of what it, and again, you have three entities to be concerned with. What I'm hearing is that there'll be, relatively stable budget. But again, there's nothing assuring, yeah. Nothing. I mean, again, there's the 2%,
Right.
but there's certain ways to get out of the 2% pretty tough. I would say, in our experience, not all the time, but I would say the majority of the time that budget stays pretty stable. But I don't determine the budgets. Wrong guy, wrong room. One time.
Right.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, when will that information come out again? You said in March?
What
The
information?
information that that you're saying, okay, now, this is how we're feeling, this is what we would think. When does that?
That's March, yeah, it'd be in and around March 1st with the disclosure mail. And again, with that disclosure impact notice that's mailed out, there's an insert letter referencing where you can find the information. What is the process? What are the certain dates to be concerned with? If you do change.
Okay, any other questions?
And that information, oh, does that end up, can you put that on the website?
Yes.
Yeah, that's, so I mean, yeah, somebody wants to see an impact, there's an impact.
Well, there'll be an individual impact notice, the insert letter.
And then this, you're gonna get this letter here. That'll
Correct.
also be it, but I'm saying prior to this, I mean, people are asking questions. Are we gonna have informal meetings before? Are we gonna have any of them here in Canton?
No, not prior to the mailing. The
Not
mailing
prior to
goes
the
out.
mail. Okay, but, so we should be able to show on a website or something, what people should expect to see, if they want to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna get a notice in the mail
Like
and
a
then,
sample letter and a sample form?
yes.
Yeah. we have-
What's gonna be-
Yeah.
Yeah, what your constituents, property owners will get in the mail will be displayed, a sample cover. And will also include, hypothetical tax illustration based on our numbers, a break-even point. That's also that we,
When will it,
what's that?
timeline, when will people be getting those?
March first.
No, I'm saying,
When will they show up online? Like, look at your website, samples.
In terms of the values,
March first, you're gonna hit the actual, but.
everything's gonna be updated on the website as of March first. March first is our third most popular phase with property owners. And that, you know, the website's gonna be updated, they're gonna get a notice.
That's gonna be a separate website.
Correct. It's
The
a,
Town and Village website, we're putting together all the educational information, and we talked about putting sample letters, that you will
Yeah.
provide us, samples.
that'll go March, whatever you post on your websites, we have a dedicated interactive assessment website. That'll be devoted to the project. But everything's gonna get in and around March first, everything gets updated.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah,
Anna Swanson, village trustee. I actually want some clarification on this point, because I think that from our standpoint, one of the things that we need to be able to do is point our community members very clearly to the answers to their questions. So is what I think I am hearing is that as of March first, this website that's mentioned, pros, that is going to be available, and that is where people will be able to go, follow their disclosure notice, they'll be able to see what the basis for the valuation that GAR has arrived at. Is that
You'll see your own information, you'll see comparable sales. All assessment value related information will be live. now.
leading up to that? So going this summer, when there's going to be mailings to commercial property owners and residential property owners asking us if, and correct me if I get this wrong, but asking us if the information about our property is correct. I'm assuming this is things like, you have a 3-bedroom, it is about this many square feet,
Yeah.
right? That is going to happen this summer, correct?
Correct.
Where is the like?
That's gonna be the pro, yeah. The pros website will be updated, so essentially the pros update website will be updated twice.
Okay,
With any mailing that goes up, that goes out as it relates to inventory this summer, late summer. The pros website will be updated. There'll be data inventory related. And then subsequently, when we mail a notice with a disclosure notice, that's more value generated, still data. That you can look at your inventory, but we're pointing people to the pros site. Now, they could get there through the town site. There'll be a link on there in case someone goes to the town or the village site, if there is a village site. It'll all, but we're funneling everybody to the pro site because that's gonna be the most.
okay, and does this site also have the kind of explanations, like, the council members, simple math explanation about how the town levy works? Is there that kind of information on there as well, so people, for example, clears up some of these misconceptions?
Yeah, yes, the short answer is yes. We'll have a potential hypothetical tax illustration, the cover letter that goes out. That's the insert letter with the notice. There'll be a whole host of information as well as assessment and sales information so that people, it's an interactive website, but there'll be postings on that homepage that are relevant.
Thank you. And my final, Matt,
well, absolutely, I was just gonna say that GAR has already given us, a short video.
okay.
To upload on our webpage.
Excellent. And then my final question, well, I shouldn't, but right this minute. You mentioned that in the data verification process, and then I think maybe it was the valuation process. You said that there's a quality control process that can you describe what you do with that process?
Well, it's sort of multifaceted, but ultimately what we're trying to do is be consistent with the value.
Mhm.
And so after we determine these values, we review them with some statistical analysis, the state's involved, so that if there's a property that are similar, they carry similar value. Is the easiest way to describe it. And, as I mentioned, it's collaborative in the sense that whatever we determine, that gets forwarded to the assessor. So there's another set of eyes on it. It's, we just review it. It's, between statistical analysis involving the state, involving, sending the assessor, that's, ultimately our labor intensive, so the QC.
Okay, with that being,
Ashley, I just have to say one thing. I didn't come to make a comment, but I was doing pretty good. I took some pretty good notes, but just recently it's just. And I'm thinking of all the people out of town that was don't have pretty good computer skills. They're gonna get killed. So I can't predict what's gonna happen, but it just seems that it confused me pretty good. And I'm not a dumb guy, but I'm not even smart either.
Yeah, I don't, sir, believe me, I'm not trying to.
I know you're not.
And it is, even to the most knowledgeable property owner, this can be a lot between equalization rates and levies, going from 315 to another one. But to your point about non-internet users, that information will be available in paper form. So for people that don't use the internet, don't trust the internet, don't like the internet, that just don't have the facilities to use the internet, again, transparent. And there will be the opportunity to get information if there is confusion, which we feel, multiple calls from local municipalities about the process, what it all means.
okay, with that being said, we do have,
So this is pre-March first. There's some people who aren't here. It's on the website. I've not been to the website. Is there a?
it has-
That's
Yeah, it's not live.
That's one reason. Will there be some kind of saying this is what you should expect on March first? So people who aren't here will know what to look for. This is what's coming and this is what it's for. Is there that kind of thing pre-March first where they can know what to expect and why it's coming?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna develop, a sales book. So you guys could look at, put it in my office, for the last 2 years of what's been sold out there. So you're welcome to look at that. I've not done it yet, but I'm gonna work on that.
I think I was more looking at, March first, you're gonna get your preliminary. Okay, so if someone goes to the website, they'll know before March first, oh, I'm gonna get a preliminary assessment March first, and I should be looking for it, and this is what it is, and this is what the steps. Is anything like that gonna show up before March first?
We've created what?
we're putting together a web page for our website, right?
Sure.
They're gonna have a separate webpage, right? Website. So we're at the education phase, as I mentioned in my statement. At that page, we're putting together a pamphlet as well, but this is not all on there. Mirroring what there is.
Working with public get the pamphlet.
We,
Because I'm thinking down the road, like Mr. Casterly just brought up, for the people that don't want to use the internet and it confuses them, what are they gonna get? I think you're asking, what are they gonna get?
well, again,
The only problem is
Cindy's office,
pictures of the properties cannot be viewed by the public. It's in my system. So that.
Yeah,
can't
no.
be-
That's not what I
I think the question, the question is the pamphlet, like an informational pamphlet,
Okay,
we can
yeah,
make available, I would think, in paper form somewhere.
we're pretty close to having the pamphlet. done.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's taken time. This is the first part of the educational process. And then the next piece is to put all this. Then what we do.
What, yeah,
Cindy is available.
Yeah, you guys can come up to my office and look and view.
Cindy's available, so people can call, they can come meet with her, she can, be accessible to educate, to help with that.
But getting back to my question, where are people gonna be able to get this? Yeah,
From Cindy's office, we'll have copies in both villages.
Well, how are they gonna know? How are we gonna get the word?
Well, I just, if I may, we're gonna be issuing a series of press releases to inform the public at various stages of the project. So in other words, when we get close to a mailing of the property inventory survey, that press release will go out. You know, we don't control when that will be issued, but we'll certainly submit it to the various publications.
And we have our reports here. So, hopefully we get that done. That's what I'm.
Yeah.
Okay, but then,
And in response to John Cassidy's comment, I did call Carr. Got a gentleman at Carr. Told him that, you know, asked about the informal review process. And he said, well, just go online here. And I said, well, stop right there. I'm gonna have issues with that because I'm not very good with computers. And so he said, well, then I will send you the form. And he sent the form right out. And the form is very easy to work. And so for those that, but I mean, again, there's a timing issue here. So when you get your impact notice, and if you've got a problem with it, make your contact as soon as possible so that you make sure that you meet the deadline. There are deadlines.
okay, we do have a full agenda as well. David, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
And moving forward. Public, you're more than welcome to stay for our meeting. Thanks, thank you for.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda. Is it for the regular meeting for April 9th?
Well,
Motion by Andy for the second.
second,
All in favor, say aye. Correspondence, there is. Financial report. Angela.
Good evening, thank you. Just to give a very high level recap of my.
David, would you mind taking that? Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening, to give a high level recap of the town's finance. We are 1/3 budget this year. Being government wide, we have used overall appropriations of about 28% in all of the funds. Reflected in what we would expect their spending overall. When it be dealing with that. Right.
Person. I do want to say that, to our surprise, we did receive a first check of adult use of cannabis revenue. So the town, the first check is like $381, the village is getting the same amount, but I called the county treasurer's office, I said, can you explain this a little bit more? Because this is new, right? I mean, the law's not new, but now revenue has started. And so the county, the state sent the cannabis revenue, so this cannabis revenue to the county, and then the county has to figure out how to disperse it. And so they're just, that we just did and made it, we won't get any more. But they don't, it's just getting started. So that is additional revenue. And, we were instructed by the even though, I have different feelings about that, but, we got it in writing and it's to the director over it. So that was annoying. We also received our, the next sales tax check. So the B account has, been fully funded. And now all the rest of the sales tax money will go into, so. Move forward.
Yes, moving forward to the first reports for the April, the revenue over to the town was about 60, slight decrease in year. One of the areas. Here, our building.
So that third installment is coming up, so one patent, and I'm gonna close out our books and my notes are balance. They've already sent over their final process, you know. Bring everything over, and I'll write you your final checks, and then I'll write the rest out.
Thanks. Great. Anybody have any questions? All right, being said, audit committee.
Townwide A. 107,176.83. Coming outside B, $88,576. Townwide highway DA, $10,774.68. Parktown highway DB, $27,251.42. Special fire, $1,588.83. Special light, $95.29. Trusted agency, $23,903.82.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the expenditures? Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, department reports. Heidi, you want to go first?
Sure. My office, well, I've been very busy. We have had a lot of FOIL requests coming in, so I've been very busy working with other departments on fulfilling those. We're pretty cool to have them, so I'll put those, but we have been very busy actually with those. Communications Technology Committee, we didn't meet last month, but you know, as we're talking, I'm currently working on the reevaluation page, information page, so that's in the works. And we rescheduled our next meeting. We have one coming up for this month. We have successfully switched over the historian Facebook page over from the historian to us. It's currently right now it's connected to my personal Facebook page and village Megan Sauce page until we can figure out how to connect it to the town's page, but so we now have access to the historian Facebook page. And I had my conference in Syracuse, which was really informational. I actually taught a class this year, so that was interesting. It's not what it's see. And then my next upcoming trainings are September and December, but yeah.
Any questions for them? Stephen, would you like to go next?
Spring seems to have finally arrived. Crew's been very busy. We've taken the plow trucks apart for some reason. We can stay out a little bit. Crew finished installing the dump box on truck 11 that was purchased used from the town of Brandon last fall. We didn't have to spend much to purchase the box, and we put a lot of work into it. We had it working, looking really good. So that was quite a saving expense. Two of our crew members went to Governor to a New York State flagging traffic control school as part of the grant that we received for our traffic control homes, signage, stuff like that. The rest of the guys went today and attended 1 through 9 in SEMA, so everyone's been through that. Mark Green worked his last day on May 1st. His last day of work will be July 20th. So he's on the books for most of the summer. Yeah, we'll be down to one person. But I think he was pretty excited to start his retirement. He told me that morning of his last day, that he said, "Don't hate this place. But he said, I'm sick of being tied down in winter time.
32 years is a long time.
Yes. Mike Shaw has been moved up to temporary supervisor foreman in Mark's absence to do the daily supervisor foreman role. Crew also finished assembling the new plow truck we got in December. They didn't really get started on it until the end of January and just worked on it in between running repairs, plow, everything like that. But they did a really good job putting it together. You can't tell the difference from coming out of the factory. I used to build on it. It takes a lot to put one together. All the electrical, hydraulics, all the air system to control everything. The electronics for the standard control. There's a lot involved with building one. They did a very excellent job. The dealership that we purchased the cab and chassis from actually commented on the workmanship, the ability. The salesman said, you guys are very lucky to do that yourself in house. One of the guys went today, we had the blades ordered for it since January. They finally came in, or finally were built. They went and picked them up today. Viking folded them. Right now, they're down. They had about 400 trucks to assemble on their lot throughout the winter. They're down to around 250, and they're around 2 to 2.5 years out to get one put together. So we wouldn't have seen that truck for a long time, and they're running it right now all around. Crew did complete doing spring cleanup from our snow plowing, damages, stuff like that. That's all. We're working at getting the gravel roads in shape for some in between rainstorms, along with patching potholes. That was a rough winter on the blacktop roads and all the rains at home. I would like to ask the board for approval to get pricing and availability of the pickup truck. That is in the budget narrative, not asking to purchase it, just move ahead and get pricing and availability. I don't know how long right now it takes to get a vehicle. I don't know if it's a 3-month wait or a new vehicle. Like some input on that if we can, or I'd like to thank the crew for all that they do. They do a lot of things there that people don't see. They put a lot into it.
Comments, the highway committee, could you take that? This is the highway committee.
Doesn't cost anything to, doesn't cost anything to check and see, and then, you get serious about it after seeing price. They can eat, make recommendations. Move forward from there.
Thank you.
There was one other item, we already. That's the board, in anticipation of retirement, have an opening. Plan for it. Great moment. So.
The goal of able Mark last day is the 20th, able to get it advertised, get applications, do the interview process, selection, and be able to start someone like on the 21st.
Yeah.
Monday the 21st.
That way, you can notify them before July 1st.
They
Gotta
can
get
put
it
their
up to sit there.
And that's for an MEO. not an ATO. Start with an MEO, and then they have meet certain standards and then do plan.
Correct.
So it's a little bit less. Right?
Which would be advertised. The rate for it.
Okay, any questions of Stephen? All right, Cindy?
I guess my department took enough of your time with that, with David. But I'll take a couple of minutes. Okay. We just were notified that the state will accept the stock credit. You can register for a stock credit if you have it 2 weeks prior to July 1st. So if anybody needs to do that, we got up until like June 15th, I would say. I don't know what's going on down at the Office of Real Property. We just were given town assignments and the temporary right now, but the data collector is now doing my sales, my tax service. She's my tax service aide for the next couple of months. They're really short staffed there. Hopefully they'll get some money in the department soon. Also, the application for extension of the enhanced start deadline, the GC, which is for good cause, that came out. I have that up at my office. So if anyone needs to apply for the enhanced star, so that would be someone who's receiving a basic star exemption, wants to go to enhanced, and they missed the deadline March 1st. They can fill out this form as long as they have a valid reason. And then that goes right to the state. Let's see. You read my report, and I think David talked about the exemptions and how they've dropped, and how by doing the reval, they're gonna come up to full value. So the basic star exemption right now for 2025 is going to 21,600. And the enhanced star exemption is going to 61,990. Also, I showed the veteran exemptions, and you can see that in my report, showing the full value and multiplying it out by the E rate, and that's what they're getting for the exemptions. So I just wanted to show you guys that. Grievance coming up. See that? It's May 27th from 4 to 8. So far, I got 2 people coming. So anyone who wants to file for grievance, I've not had anybody come in for informal. It's been really quiet, almost scary. I thought maybe the mail got lost, but that's about it. Does anybody have any questions?
What dates are you sitting with the rolls?
I sat Monday. I'm gonna sit this tomorrow from 12 to 4, and then tomorrow, and then Wednesday from 4 to 8, and then on Saturday from 9 to 1.
And if someone wanted to do an informal with you,
They can come in. Yeah, and I have them busy so they can come in time.
okay, any questions of Cindy? Thank you, Cindy, appreciate it. Casey,
I will make this as quick as possible. We had a pretty slow month at the historian's office as far as visitors go. We only had 8 people come in. Not really sure why. Maybe the meeting the new historian has worn off. There was the Region 6B Public Historians meeting in Ogdensburg. Meet a lot of the historians from St. Lawrence County and Franklin County. And then what I've been working on, they presented what they've been working on, so we need to come together and share ideas. Again, updating the collection inventory for CDK. And I finished up the volunteer program guidelines and the collection management policy, which I presented at the joint meeting at the end of April. And both of those policies are up on the historian webpage. Thank you to Heidi and Tasha who put that up for me. As part of that, I watched a staff development webinar for inactive storage. I put together a brief history of the early years of St. Lawrence University for Supervisor Bashley. I've included that in case anybody wants to read it, but it's basically how and why St. Lawrence University ended up in Canton. And talking about their struggles in the early years in a remote area. That was itself in its early days. And the final thing is the St. Lawrence County historian has proposed the idea of doing fireside chats over the summer. Basically, it'd be a moderated discussion about a specific topic that's pertinent to whatever town you're in. So if the public would like to have one of those in Canton, they can reach out to me. With ideas of what topic they'd like to discuss, and more importantly, a good place for us to have it safely.
Questions, please? Thank you, Casey, appreciate it. Lee?
Secondary water sources almost done, just a few last things to wrap up, more final trainings happening later this week, so hopefully operation. We've drafted a proposal for the local revitalization plan. Waterfront Advisory Committee has reviewed it, and we've gotten comments back to hear back from the state, and hopefully we can get that out. Village submitted an application to the Northern Border Regional Commission for $2 million towards the next round of municipal water system upgrades, Michigan 5. The city group is here to join meeting and updated reports on progress of the project in Newton Plaza. The village is also pursuing funding for stormwater infrastructure improvement through a couple of different sources. And the county submitted an for the project for $500,000 for the county infrastructure program, and we also submitted to the hazard mitigation grant program for $5,225,000. Got word that was the pre-approval process of additional things we need to provide, but I didn't know that's. Minor Street Mill Island grant is wrapping up. We're just doing the final paper we need to do to get everything submitted. Final budget amendment. Grant out. Approve the work plan for the next phase of shoreline stabilization. Impact Willow Island and another grant. Your information grant is also wrapping up at the end of this month. The archway will be going on sometime until we take the money. So the project is almost complete. Also reviewed the work plan for the EDC. We got to. We're also trained employees to be. We're working on getting that contract finalized as well. We help Megan and regional process. An application through the municipal conservation grant program for improvements to virtual playground and that's in the amount of $577,000.
Can you repeat that number?
$577,159. It's in 90. And we're just waiting for the next round of grants to be announced. It's already on the application process. Mid-May, around this time frame, and they're due at the end of July typically. So it's pretty good possibilities we talked about here. Technical assistance grant. I'm considering what else we might which see. So you're on there. Impact. So those should be coming in the next.
Okay, thanks, Lee. Any questions? All right, thank you. Megan, would you like to?
Cool. Been a busy month. Yeah, we hosted the Maple Run. They use them in the park to play hobby. They added the right room. She loves having it down there because she's figured out that springtime. So it's nice that they have that space. Let's see here, we were able to do just some, minor housekeeping around the rate where the grass started growing. The adaptive new along the Taylor Park. Wilcox Crane Company, they donate their services to do that every spring and every fall. Pickleball courts are, and tennis courts are all open at Priest Field. We did some filling of the frost cracks because we don't live in Florida. So we filled those in, we painted them. It turned out pretty nice. And then there's 2 trees there that block the sun from the courts, which actually cause rot to the surfacing, and we spent a lot of money on the water that's on it. So those 2 trees are on the removal list so that we can protect our and servicing that. That will just give a chance for the course to dry out. New weekend. Issues. Had a great weekend. Probably could use a little bit more sun. So. We mentioned the grant that we applied for. Playground, putting in a splash pad at the park, which would consequently we would have to invest. Certain places where you can estimate in that park that you see the found out. And obviously everybody knows now that Taylor Park Beach will not be open. It's unfortunate. It's pretty much 100% taken out of our hands because of new police regulations that we run January 1st. But for good reason. Taylor Park has two parcels that are over 40 acres of class 1. So there's a lot of one red tape that we have to go through. The regulations haven't been updated since it was first implemented in 1975. So obviously they had to make some catching up to do. So at this point, really, I'm focused on getting set up at the school. I'm going to meet with the school, walk through the new pool, get a feel for their procedures, getting all their documents to make sure that people are need training with lifeguards. We have all the hours set for community swim hours up there. We're hopeful at the beginning of June, we'll start this Saturday's only. And then once school is out, we'll be going Monday through Saturday. School is closed on Sunday. And between that and then doing some park hours where essentially the would used to be lifeguards. They would work to do kayak rentals. They make sure the back house is open as much as possible. So anybody that's kayaking or canoeing or just going out and having picnics, they have access to that. And also for any of our picnic shelters, it's still access to that. So we're just working on that schedule to make sure that we can keep it as normal as possible because it's a nice space for people that don't have a way to get away. We're just kind of working through the hurdles.
And there's a lot.
There's a lot of them, and the applications will come. It's we're in a lot through the process, and it's very much similar to when you go to the DMV. If you do not have one thing in your application, you go back to the end of the line. So it's right now it's just doing a lot of research to make sure that I have everything that I need to submit a proper application. Because it's going to be a process. And we just have to work through the process, do it properly. All the permits between the DEC and then also Army Corps of Engineers is involved as well. All of those permits are multi-year permits. So the goal is hopefully we get awarded a permit and then we can do it moving forward and do it properly. And make sure that our application is getting submitted in time for that.
So the beach part is not open.
Yep.
The other areas will be open.
So like I kind of described it today, you still like Sandcastle, you just can't go to one. So we want people to use the park, but we also want people to be respectful because it is a safety issue. Everybody, there's a strong current there, yes, but the slope of the beach can really surprise somebody, especially if little kids. We need to, everybody should be respect it. Happy to answer anybody.
Any questions? Everybody for your work. Like,
Thank you, Mary Ann. For the month of April.
yeah,
No. Through the month of April, I actually, well, that's for the end. Project cost of $290, commit fees are $912. Issued the certificate occupancy for the new home construction on 27. At the present time, at the end of April, I don't believe they've completed the home yet. Also, the planning board held a preliminary meeting with a solar developer for possible 5 megawatt community solar project out on the corner of Engleville Road and Pioneer Street. At the present time, I haven't heard from the developer. They're gonna proceed with the project because they have to get a variance and, other items to, go through with that project. I have begun working on, going through the plans for the project at, State Highway 310. They sent me the plan at the beginning of the month. So I'll be going through those. That's the east project because the planning board denied the west project. That was good. Well, I did talk to the developer for the biodigester. After I had a online seminar about biodigesters. Unfortunately, funding is short on new construction of biodigesters, so they're still waiting for future funding. They are still looking to go ahead on this project, but funding is not there right now to be feasible for the construction of the new biodigester. I did attend the seminar down at Turning Stone and met with Perez, which is now part of the New York Public Utility Forum. So very nice to meet him in person and discuss the Rich Road project. Other than that, that's it.
you wanna talk a little bit about the inspections and stuff?
Oh, yeah, thank you. B&L, we had a conference call the end of April. She wanted to know the progress of the 5 solar developments we have going on in the town of Canton. So we went through that list and, as of today, she, has visited all 5 sites, inspected all 5 sites. Once, she compiles her inspection reports, everything on the 5 sites, I'll forward to the board so you know what's going on with it. I do suspect she will find items in those 5 sites because it's new construction and storm water runoff and the site itself with that. I'm glad she got out there to see all 5 sites. That's good, so we can keep those.
So, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
As we had planned, right, this is phase 2, so. We have the escrow money from the companies themselves to pay these. So, solidified, taking the indicator department into this, so. That's the developers to pay the lease inspections. Any questions of Mike? Okay, so did I miss anybody? I think so, with that being said, I need a motion to accept. Is there a second? Okay, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Do you mind if we move, the justice court request up on the agenda right now, since Justice Morgan is here and I know you'd love to stay for the rest of the meeting, but. Is that okay that we move it up? All right, Judge Morgan.
Thank you. So we ran into a little bit of a problem in that, the too efficient. And, we are on our slower court days, when the security officer that we're working for basically stated what the work is. So we've tried to look at alternatives. And Department of Criminal Justice Services kind of came through this after that. So they're hard to find. Either they're working and you can't move on. Problem. So I met with the judicial committee. I had a couple ideas. My work. We came up with an idea of giving the officer a 4-hour pay time, and whether it was 2 hours or 4 hours. The rate was going to be increased to 20. I spoke with the officer, he was agreeable to that.
So just to clarify, there's two, one constable. And one court security through the door when you have an intermunicipal. You're speaking of Norwood. So right now it's $28 an hour. You want to increase that to pay no matter what, $30 an hour. Then committee would.
You want to explain this scenario? I can, yeah. So, the sheriff. We could potentially utilize them, the hourly rate. Looking at from around. Maybe this might be the better way to say it. May at some point have to do it. Yeah, that's true. So the bigger the 4 hours, just get us through.
And so what about the constable's position? Right now that would be paid per hour, stay at $28 an hour. So the recommendation.
We were.
For the 30.
And then for the 4 hours, basically it's like a call and he works 2 hours and 3 hours, but we'll pay him, we'll guarantee him. Just to make him.
You ought to be over.
Occasionally, but I'm being told that there's other courts that are going, anywhere between 6 and 8 hours. I'm not sure why they're doing that long, but. I mean, I can tell you that I have gone almost 6 hours one time. It just depends on how many people we have on the docket, you know. I've had, 2 or 3 on the docket.
The norm is 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
To come over here, it's not worth his time for.
Right. That's what it comes down.
But he's agreeable to.
He's agreeable to the
Guaranteed.
So I'm trying to remember the intermunicipal agreement. Sure that we actually. That cited.
and that's why.
So.
It's committee's recommendation. We entertain it. We guarantee the 4 hours at $30 per hour.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion or not? Are you doing that in your head?
No, I'm just wondering why he needs 30 instead of 28. You're guaranteeing 4 hours, 28. It's not enough one, not much for us. Okay,
We got.
he's willing to do it 4 hours, 28.
I know a lot of people, law enforcement. I make a lot of calls. It's just.
My one question is about, right, fundamental fairness. You know what I mean? It's the same.
I feel the same way, if the board wants to do that. Committed for the budget year, committed $28. Board feels that it's unfair, you want to move that to 30 to match, I'm fine with that. I submitted my budget. So that's all you got. You want to do it.
Because I think we made them equal. Where? Discrepancy. Right, so.
Well, my question is that 4 hours for 30, you can get more apart from 28, is going to do it.
No,
4 hours.
well, no, I don't know if he was or not. I came up with the 30 as an incentive.
And
We
that's,
have to have some.
that was mine, but that's only my other question, it's different between the municipal and the other guy.
Figure with a little bit, and the other court said, this officer works, that is paying them. That, the other, that's why I came up with that, at least match.
The constable, everything, stuff.
No.
So we have a motion. Table to approve minimum of 4 hours. Second. So. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Wait, aye.
Aye. But I just submitted all that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, committee report.
as Mike pointed out, solar committee met with. We made contact with that was meeting and it was a very. Good meeting.
Other committee reports?
Oh, Sam, this is.
Yeah.
Building committee met on Monday. And we have a couple of things on, and one you can physically see right now. We've started to straighten. The other thing that we were working on is we want new chairs for the boardroom. That's pretty much it.
Nice question. This came up with complete streets, they talked about handicap parking in parking.
Yes.
It's gonna be
If
two
you notice where, there's no lines right now in the front corner,
Right.
those are gonna be handy.
One of the things that came on this consideration for these streets was access to the court. And I wondered if it makes sense to put a park, you have park, max on that way.
On the police station.
Right at the end of the police station, I'm gonna access directly to the sidewalk. Be able to get around into the court
Makes a lot of sense.
from that, to that point.
That's,
Okay, any other committee reports?
Church services, and we got an agreement on the.
Police streets met Monday. Handicap parking was one of the topics. Talked about the Canton Trail, connecting Taylor Park to Remington. Back and forth. The route and wayfinding, and signs and everything to get people smoothly from Taylor Park to trail back. Discussion. And the other discussion with the safety items on minor that are still solar powered lights, flashing lights, speed limit signs, and other stuff we'll mention. Checking the status on that.
The solar powered would be at the crosswalk.
Okay, anything else? Any other communications? Okay, that being said, old business, shared service agreements, we have the majority of them agreed upon from the joint meeting. Two outstanding ones, the municipal towns, as well as recreation. So, committee met and we feel that this building one can be voted on tonight by the town and then the village meeting. And the other item is number one under new business, we talked about a policy of some sort. For use of the municipal. So the one item to vote on is you all received a copy of the intermunicipal agreement that the town can't with paying for the municipal building grant. Is there a motion to move? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Um,
Circle back to your question. Still hold up on the recreation agreement. Is there a certain hold up? in it? Yeah, basically, we got a intermunicipal agreement that the wording in the agreement says that we share the cost. Okay. But we don't. And so we're discussing how we're going to do that. Unless, trying to come up with ways that maybe the town could get up to the village's level, which there's about a 9 or 10,000. Then I think the village contributes like 170. And so I just said, for blanket, I will contribute this dollar value.
this year is.
More issue. It's going to, when you run the community, we talk about the step process. So what we're trying to do is make that process reconcile with the agreement. That's not the way the agreement's written. That's what.
Maybe you can. help us. There's an item that has been the seniors.
Oh, the senior citizens as well. Part of that agreement.
And we're recommending taking that out. We give, we fund senior citizens on the second line in the budget. Do that.
Because the village has an agreement with the senior citizens. We have continued now, it's in the recreation agreement. It should be separate, and it should be citing one thing that is. So, that the is that.
Megan, do you still sign that? You haven't signed it? If I was director, I usually sign.
Sally's here for 10 more days, we better have to.
Yeah,
But I know, like, the Excel spreadsheet that Sally sent me, there are 2 line items for percentages and.
It's always been separate. It was separate. I inherited it separate 100 years ago.
Yeah, since I started.
Okay, new business. Oh, we were just talking about the shared services committee, felt, as a whole, it should be a municipal building use. Jointly as a policy, not part of the municipal agreement. So, we started that conversation and then it really should get back to the building committee for review and input. So that's information. All right, the 2026 town budget calendar you received, again, that's a very rough draft. It's fluid. Departments will be getting their budget packets, most likely next week. So we can start that process a little bit early. The next item is the JCAP grant budget amendment. We received the money, but now we need to amend the budget to show expenditure. So we do have a resolution for the program. We received 28,855.52 cents. So now we need to increase revenue and expense in the budget. So I need a motion to approve that. Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay, as Stephen mentioned, resignation of highway foreman Mark Rue due to retirement. Yeah, we don't have to do a formal acceptance, but do recognize the service, appreciation. We're moving forward with advertising for the position. I do need to talk to the board in the executive session. Okay, so that's, thank you, Mark. All right, the last item is public comment. We're here to listen, and this is the time for the public to, say what they would like us to listen to. If you could leave it under 3 minutes, so that everybody has an opportunity. Okay, is the public comment?
The county is hosting a land use, essentially like a informational session. You can see wetlands policies at the end of the month. It's geared for anybody in especially planning board and zoning boards. Sally sent me from so that way, if anybody wants to, you got to send an email.
Did you get it, Mike?
Well, they are to you. And then we didn't meet. But it's only 2 hours. The other month. But especially anybody who's trying to be community planning in the near future, might be a good idea to attend.
Okay. Any other public comment? With that being said, we do need a motion to go into executive session and then pertaining to the. Make the motion into the second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Upstairs. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.